to the sites that will have the answer. Yesterday I sent Adam Julian a 26-page manual on foot health. Choose to read through that when you can, because there's a lot of information that will go in much more in depth. The first thing that is stated on that, and I think it's very important, is that we're not here to prescribe. We're not here to give you any kind of medical information that you couldn't get, online. You're not diagnosing is essentially how it's coming. It doesn't put you into a position of diagnosing somebody with plantar fasciitis or metatarsalgia or even bunions. But what we are wanting to do is to get you into a position where if you have a customer who says she has plantar fasciitis, or you have a podiatrist who sends someone in to get a pair of shoes with plantar fasciitis, you know how to work with that person and specifically what type of shoes will and won't work. Okay? One thing that I do want to go over is your top seller from us is the 847. The 847 has been in our line for a number of years. We've made a few slight tweaks to it this season. This color up, the full gray, will be in January. So for those who don't like that little peach call out on it, it's fine. We're going to have the tonal gray coming. But with this shoe, this is a straight-lasted shoe. What a straight-lasted shoe is designed to do is it accommodates all types of feet. Okay? So you have somebody who has very wide, flat feet. You have somebody who has a very narrow, high arch. You have somebody who has a neutral foot. This can accommodate all types. So we're working from different lasts in our shoes. And does anybody know what a last is? Do you know what the last is designed to do?
I think we all know. Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Pull the shoe over.
Right. It's how a shoe is made. So a last is just a wooden block. It kind of simulates so what the foot is going to look like, and then the shoe is built around. Okay. So there are different types of lasts. Even in the New Balance line, there are different types of lasts. And one of the things that you might encounter, somebody says, well, I've worn New Balance before, I've worn Asics before, I've worn Brooks before, and they don't fit. There's so many options. And New Balance comes out of the ped-orthic world in 1906. Our company was founded by a man who was looking to build a stronger orthotic, something that is going to stabilize the foot. And it just happens to start as an orthotic line and then built into shoes years later. Many people know that. And then taking that type of science is seeing how you can stabilize the foot the best is how we're building our shoes. Okay? So a couple of things that we'll go through in foot health, and I'm going to leave this with you. This is our NBRX. Okay? This is just one of our trifolds. We can order more of these for you. It's a nice piece to have. But a lot of the questions that people have are specifically what their foot is doing in motion. Pronation, supination. You might hear different words being used, supination, I roll this way or I roll this way. Well, that really is what it is pronation rolls inward, supination rolls outward. The number one question that I do get when I'm working with people is, how can you tell the difference? Because in runner's gait, there's also underpronation. There's also overpronation. So what's the main difference? Well, our foot is designed, when our foot sits down, the bone structure is designed to slightly roll inward. Okay? That's normal. That's not a part of saying, well, your foot is doing something wrong. Your foot is going to, in most cases, roll inward. There are very few cases of somebody's foot who rolls outward, supination. Okay? You're not going to see a lot of shoes that are built for supination, mainly because it requires more custom work. In most cases that I've worked with on supination or somebody who has an issue of rolling outward, it's typically more of either a deformity or some type of an injury that has caused it, where your foot, once you go into heel strike to midfoot to toe off, just does not roll back inward. Some people have a late pronation, and that's totally different. So you're going to hear people come in and they look at the bottom of their shoes and say, oh, look where my wear is. My wear is all on the outside of the shoe. That doesn't necessarily mean it's supinating. Same thing when you take somebody who stands like this. It doesn't mean that they supinate. Because what happens is when they stand in a more neutral position, their ankles collapse under, right? Their knees collapse under. So those are things that we want to keep an eye on when we're looking at shoe fitting. Second thing is not diagnosing, but offering a suggestion on the style of shoe that will get you back to neutral. That's really all shoe fitting is about. How can you put that foot back into the most neutral position possible? And there's a couple of combinations. You can take an orthotic, right? Orthotic is designed to correct the motion inside of the shoe, or you can take a style of shoe. What is a shoe designed to do? It corrects the motion as you're walking. Which is more important? Well, it depends on your podiatrist. Just Jenny and I were saying a second ago, you can line up 10 different podiatrists, orthotists, foot health people. You're not going to get the same answer.
We tried that. We don't bring them in anymore.
Yeah, and then in some cases it's almost too much information. It becomes so confusing of saying, well, I'm not really sure how I'm going to help. You know, I will say, having been in both worlds with the orthotics and the shoe, I think the style of shoe, if it has enough support to it, can help alleviate the majority of the issues. Okay, and the majority of issues that we're going to be talking about are going to be plantar fasciitis, metatarsalgia, bunions, Morton's neuroma. Those are really the ones that you're going to get in here. You're probably not going to get post-tib tibialis. You're probably not going to get too many things that a doctor would do. And in those situations, most of the time it's better just to go ahead and refer, you know, say, that's beyond my scope. Here's a list of podiatrists, and you have a number of them in the area. But working from the shoe in, what the orthotic is designed to do, and anybody who brings orthotics in, how many times have you had someone say, well, I wear orthotics, you take, you know, oh, look at the shoe, they're not in there. Where are they? Well, they're at home, they're not comfortable, right? I mean, if you've gone through this a couple of times, first time you meet somebody with orthotics, well, they're not comfortable, they don't fit, they don't feel good, they're too rigid, they're too constructed. It takes time for your foot to adapt to that. The muscles inside of it, in your foot do take time to adapt. Second thing is on orthotics is that a lot of times they will have them in the wrong shoe. So you can have the best orthotic and you're fitting in the wrong shoe. What have you done? You know, I've been a 9.5 my whole life. I've never changed. I always wear 9.5. Well, New Balance's 9.5 is not Merrell's 9.5, is not Clark's 9.5, is not Mephisto's 9.5, right? So know that in sizes of your shoes, we're talking about a small variance, but it makes a difference on shoe fitting. The same thing with widths. Very few people will say, you know, I know what my width is. How many people know what a combination last is? Because they're not being made too much anymore. That's where you have the heel width is different than the forefoot width. You know, as opposed to being a straight elastic, you have something that's designed to be more structured around the heel, maybe wider in the forefoot. Maybe you have something that's more shallow in the forefoot. You have something that's deeper. So those are all pieces that fall into shoe fitting too. Going back into the 847, the reason that this works so well, and this shoe, to give you a term, is qualified for PDAC, which means that it can be billed into Medicare. Not that you're billing, but know that that meets the qualifications for somebody who is going to have an at-risk foot, right? Whether she's diabetic or whether she needs something that's going to be billed. The most important thing that you need to know about that is it does have enough depth in the shoe, which is a half an inch, that you can remove the existing footbed and put the orthotic down into it. So by taking this out, dropping that down, right, that gives you enough room that you can work with. The other thing is that we're fitting off of different widths with this. New Balance doesn't use the same last to fit off of widths. A lot of times it's just taking a 16th of material and adding it to the upper, and that constitutes a width, not necessarily changing the actual platform. New Balance will change the actual platform too, in cases. So you have a broader shoe to work with, not only a deeper shoe. Okay? So that's that's very important because calling wide, you know, is it a 2E? Is it a 4E? Right? So those are all things that we want to work from. Any questions on just kind of that overview or anything that some of you've run across that maybe podiatrists saying, yes?
That new A47, if you look at it, it looks like the toe box isn't as high. And
Okay.
when they're showing it to people, they've been saying it doesn't have, and one lady that tried it on said that it didn't have as much room over the top of her toe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to ask about that too.
All right. And she was fitting from the exact same size and everything as the previous model,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, with each model that we do change, and the 928 was a big part of this. We had to move from 928 version 1 to version 2. Version 2 was slightly a little bit more narrow, but it wasn't because of the material used, it was because of the vamp length here. So we might not have extended the vamp down as long on this shoe into the toe box, and that will also affect how wide it will fit because we're still using the widest opening on this.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's the height.
You know,
that would affect it.
it doesn't hurt the sales particularly, but if somebody comes in and says, I wear an 8.5 and, you know, I want this shoe at an 8.5, I always bring out a 9.5 because there's a whole size difference between 847
Yeah.
versions and most average shoes.
Okay.
And sometimes it's even more than that. So, you know, you really have to check the fit.
Yeah, right. I think that's kind of, the whole
Well,
point of it.
it's 847 is much more than any other shoe I've ever run across. I mean, it's just dramatic.
Well, I will say that among all of my accounts, you guys would have a better opinion on this shoe because you
Yeah.
sell it better than
Yeah.
pretty
Like
much
I say,
all
it
but one.
doesn't stop the sales by any means.
Correct.
You just have to find the
Yeah,
right size.
yeah. I mean, I think at that stage, we ran into it last year, and we did make some changes to our 928, which is a comparable shoe to this, in extending out the vamp, and that opens it up a little bit more. And then what happens is we had people come back and say, "No, I like the fit of the version 2. This one fits too big now." So there's always going to be some tweaks every time we make some changes to it. Even a material change can do that. So unfortunately, there are going to be some changes of trying it on. I highly encourage, if you haven't tried on sizes and widths in this shoe, to do so, just so when you're talking to somebody, it makes it a very easy conversation of saying, this is how this shoe fits in a version 3, since you have version 3 and version 2. Just a suggestion on that, just to try and see how they both work. Any other comments on this? People like the weight, anything else that's a little bit different?
It just sells, no matter what iteration it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I'm really excited to see a darker gray for the women.
Yep.
Because I've had plenty of women see their husbands take the darker gray version in the men's
Yeah.
and go, well, where's the equivalent for women?
Right.
Because the lighter one, it got dirty,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly.
It
Yeah.
also doesn't look as clunky as the
Right.
47 too.
Mhm.
It looks a little more
It's a little streamlined, isn't it?
streamlined.
Yeah. No, I mean, we know where this shoe is going, right? This is definitely going to be more in the pedorthic world than our racing shoes, but it's a much stronger seller for us, and I think the color ups do make a difference. One thing I wanted to kind of go on topic with is the difference in a walking stride versus a running stride. Does anybody, Jamie, who would know this very much because he does it, do you know the difference between what a runner does and somebody who is in a walking stride and how we build the shoes? Yes.
If I recall correctly, a walking stride is heel toe and a running stride kind of lands on the ball of the foot and then springs back on the heel.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Does everybody know that? And how you design a shoe, because here again, this is one of our racing style shoes, but you can look at just the difference in how this is designed.
Because you're not coming down on the heel.
That's exactly right. So, you know, when you're talking about, like we were saying, I've worn New Balance before, and this doesn't fit like what this, well, it would. Completely opposite. Weight, structure, fit into the toe box, materials that we're using. But so often is person has bought this shoe, right, and for plantar fasciitis or for any metatarsalgia neuromas or anything like that, and it doesn't help correct it. You need something that's a little more structured. So just as Aaron was saying, is what happens with a running stride is a running stride tends to be much stronger off the ball of the foot, collapsing this way and then kicking off and moving. With a walking stride, you are going to hit more heel, midfoot, and then toe off. With this shoe, because we're adding much more structure at midfoot and heel, and also this is a key component. This is endurance. I'm going to pass this around, but this particular rubber that we use on the heel is our strongest that we make. It's the most durable because this type of shoe is a workhorse. This is designed to take a lot of punishment. It's designed for that walking, and it's designed to take 2 to 3 times your body weight of going right in on that heel strike and pushing off. So here again, you're talking about the seating the calcaneus and being able to support it. We want the least amount of shock and pressure going through, especially on this shoe, and trying to reduce the motion of the shoe as much as possible, whether it's lateral or medial, by holding that foot. So the way we do that, strengthen the counter, supporting your foot, even adding the material at midfoot to help secure your foot so it's not moving forward inside of the shoe. The mesh that we use on the inside and the outside medial and lateral here is designed to give you a little bit more movement on your toes. And then you look at the structure of it, using the roll bar technology is not allowing your foot to rotate. But that's a nice call out. Most people won't know that, but just in case, I'd rather you know it than not know it. So just take a look and see how that is pitched on the heel too. And that also helps propel people who have trouble walking, getting them at least rolling into midfoot, right? So as opposed to the shufflers, that's a great shoe to work from that allows your foot to go to midfoot.
Is there such a thing as an all-purpose shoe?
I would say in our line, and I brought the 1340, but I would say our 1540 would be our closest. This would be close to it, but the difference is this has much more medial stability. I would have trouble wearing something like this because I don't have as much issue as overpronation. Yeah, a neutral shoe would work, but a neutral shoe with the right orthotic could help alleviate a lot of the pressure that you'd have rolling inward. So there again, it comes back to like we were talking about at the beginning, is it a combination? Is it a shoe, or is it only an orthotic that will control it? It's kind of both at that stage. To answer your question, there's not really an all-purpose. You do have our trail shoes, which fall into that. Here again, this is structurally sound enough to be a really stable shoe, even though it falls into more of our neutral, if you will. Doesn't have as strong of a heel counter, but by adding the correct orthotic, dropping the heel into a neutral position and reducing the rotation, you can call this kind of a all-encompassing style of a shoe. Yeah.
So was that
Yeah, our Zante.
yeah, the walk-run style?
Yes, exactly right. So that Zante is a stripped-down version of our premier running shoe, which is the 1080. The fresh foam that's underneath it's super soft, absorbent. It's designed, very lightweight. It's a little more unstructured, but it is not just a total lifestyle shoe. It has performance ability to it, and the reason is because of that midsole. So it's a nice shoe. Thank you. It has nice performance with the fresh foam. The fresh foam is designed to have structure without weight. And in most cases, you get a running shoe, it's either going to be structured, heavy, or it's going to be lightweight, and kind of unstructured.
Yeah.
Are you continuing with this foam?
Yeah, absolutely. It
Do
does
we have
very
any
well. for
coming?
us. No, you don't have anything else coming. We can
I thought
certainly.
that foam was a good seller.
I'd
You
like
did
to see
well
it
with
again.
We
Look,
had two different versions, didn't we? And-
Yep.
you did.
Yeah, and I did well with both of them.
You also had the
The
860.
blue one?
Nice to have.
Yeah.
Is that the shoe you have? Is that the white shoe you have?
I'm not sure which one that is, I don't recall the number of it.
Yeah, and
It's
we
not as structured
did.
as the 847.
Customers really liked those.
Well, it falls into an area, you know, the thing that I'm, having been with New Balance only a year and a half, the thing that I've noticed the most is New Balance has so many different opportunities in shoes. And you take most of your athletic shoes, they will either do really well in their performance, and then you go over to the medical side and it's not really so much there. Or they'll have a great medical business and the performance, look where New Balance is. And we go from having
Stop selling.
that, you know,
They stopped selling because they stopped selling, or did they
To
stop selling
this?
because we were like out of sizes?
No, like they stopped
To
selling,
this.
so we stopped ordering more.
Okay.
it's a great line. There's just so much opportunity to it.
The 847 is definitely one of our bigger shoes.
Yeah, no,
I always felt we could actually add more and do more, but,
well, look,
you know, the 847 hits a lot of different categories.
You bet, it does. It
And
does.
For us, it's got to.
yeah, and being that this is a walking store, if you will, I mean, obviously not to take the name, but, you know, it is more of a walking than it is a running. But you're right on the Zante, and there are a couple other pieces that we have. We have one called the Cruise that's out right now that really does fall into more of that athleisure, you know, I need something light, unstructured, I'm going to be in town, go to the city. So that certainly is something that we can go back into at any point. But thanks. I mean, that's good to hear that was a shoe that people did like. Okay, so going back into our NBRX, I'll get this. There are a few pieces here that not only we talked about having pronation and supination, pes cavus, pes planus, which just is a Latin way of saying high or low. Bunions and bunionettes, hammer toes. But the nice thing with this is that it gives you recommendations. Now these are recommendations that you don't carry each of these shoes, but you certainly have access to them. Okay? But the 847 is in there, and it gives you the last, and it gives you really recommendations. We are not going to call out, and I make this very clear, especially with your customers, that this shoe is not diagnosing you as having plantar fasciitis, and this is the shoe that you have to wear, right? I mean, we don't want to position it that way, but for somebody who is struggling with that, having a stable count or having something that supports the fascia tendon, having something that reduces rotation, those are all good things to alleviate the inflammation on the bottom of the foot, which is plantar fasciitis. So I'm going to leave this with you. And it does have some of our running line, which is the 1080 and the 860 and the 880, the 990, which is our heritage shoe that I've been wearing, and unbelievably comfortable. But this is a great guide for you. We can certainly order more of these. So we'll leave that.
When did that come out?
That one's brand new, so that's updated.
Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah. Steve Jobs always wore it, and he actually, I'll tell you a side story on that, but one of my accounts actually, he would either come in early in the morning or he'd come in after work, so they'd close it down, he'd just come in and buy them up. But you never saw him in anything other than gray 990s. And there's a lot of people who do that. And I can tell you, having now converted into them, unbelievable. They're very supportive. And there's a reason that this shoe has been our heritage shoe for so many years. Last thing I kind of want to go over, and then if you have questions on any of the forefoot or anything like that, in each of our catalogs, and this is the Q1 for 2018, so we're already looking out 2018. In each of our catalogs, you're always going to have the different models of the shoes, and we're going to put the last, and we're going to put all the benefits and features to it. But there's a tech sheet. And this really is great information. It's not only information that helps you with New Balance, but you can take a look at it on other styles of shoes, specifically anything enclosed. And you might have a question on, what's good for somebody who has a narrow heel? What's good for somebody who has a wide toe box? This will go through and show you the different lasts that we offer. Plus, take a look at the sizing chart. I mean, just on the 990 alone, how many widths do you think we offer? And most people, will think, 3. You can offer a medium, a wide, and an extra wide, right? That's pretty common. I mean, if you can get 2 widths out of a company, that's fantastic. 3, well, in men's alone, in the gray, we have 2A, B, D, 2E, 4E, and 6E. We go from size 7 to 13, 14, 15, and 16. We go up to size 18s. Now look at the 847s. So
You're a judge, where's a 14, or a 17?
I fit people into 18s. I fit a family, and the mom was at least a 14 on that too. I fit a family. They had size 20s, by the way.
Wow.
How tall were they?
They weren't that big. I mean, they were 6'3", 6'4". It wasn't like they were. You would think basketball players. I think Shaq is a 23 or 24 foot,
Right.
something like that.
Special made, they had to.
Yeah, yeah, I have fit people with string size 18, ultra narrow.
6'7".
The 847 that we're talking about, just for women's alone, sizes 5 through 11, 12, and 13, and that's a 2A, B, D, 2E, 4E. Right there, you have combinations that you can fit to.
Yeah.
You're not going to miss that shoe. That's why it's so important to have in. And it's good to know that you have multiple widths available. So use that guide, and then in the back you have the tech sheet. And everything.
So you were talking about the different lasts.
Yeah,
So there are other shoes made on the same last as the 847?
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Stu just went tilted. No, I'm not going to start special ordering them.
Oh. Well, it is good to know just in case somebody asks about that, so you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. Performance last and straight last are going to be a little bit different. So remember, your performance last is going to be something that's going to be a little bit more broad in the forefoot versus straighter last is. Okay. Any questions on that? I know we're kind of going through some bits and pieces, but feel free to ask questions. You know what metatarsalgia is? Do you know what Morton's neuroma? Are these things that you hear consistently?
Yeah.
You know how to work with somebody who has those issues?
Kevin, why don't you go over those 2 points?
Yeah. When you're dealing with forefoot issues, use my shoe again to illustrate it, but most of the time on metatarsalgia, it's kind of a catch-all, if you will, of a forefoot related issue, whether it is inflammation, whether it's a neuroma where you have a nerve that is somehow being pinched. That's between the third and sometimes second, third, but primarily third and fourth, where that nerve becomes squeezed and inflamed. So how do we offload the pressure going into the forefoot? There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can, the first way is taking a look at the style of shoe, having something that's a little broader that gives your foot a little bit more motion, okay? Letting your toes expand. A common problem with runners is that they have issues when they hit at their forefoot and not having enough toe splay. So what that means is that as you go from heel strike to midfoot to toe off, for us, we're not applying as much pressure, right? The majority of our pressure from a walking strike is going to be off of the heel. Heel, mid, and then toe off. When you go in a runner, it's kind of the opposite. So you hit and your toes want to tend to grab and move out a little bit. It splays, if you will. So having enough room there. A lot of runners who, you'll see black toenails, you'll see people who come in, they have bunions, they have different ailments. A lot of that is due to their shoe not giving them enough room in the forefoot to move. So that's a big concern. And the second part of neuromas is how you offload that. And a lot of times podiatrists will recommend adding a metatarsal arch support, which sits behind the metatarsal heads, lifts up, separates those toes, right, and helps offload the pressure. So you're alleviating pressure going onto that specific nerve. Same thing with plantar fasciitis. Plantar fasciitis is an inflammation of the fascia tendon. The fascia tendon elongates and it stretches and starts to get little micro tears to it. So the way that we want to offload that pressure is by stabilizing the heel, less rotation, keeping the fascia tendon set in its most neutral position, and then allowing that condition to heal as best as it can. There's different ways of doing that, but for the most part, it's not allowing your foot to elongate and stretch or over-rotate inside of the shoe.
With a runner
Yeah.
fit, do you recommend that we give them a little extra room beyond the toes?
Yeah, and you know, Jamie, you speak better to this than I as a runner, but having worked with running specialty, a lot of them they know the fit of the shoe that they want.
Okay.
So I would recommend it. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Most like to have a little bit more snug. There's a couple of ways to do that, and one of the key ways, and this is really nice, and this does affect how you do shoe fitting in here, is to apply what's called a runner's loop.
Yeah.
And a runner's loop, which is essentially taking those two, did we go through that one last time? Fantastic way of kind of combating both of the issues, which is to allow your foot to stay back even when you're applying this most amount of pressure going forward, so your foot's not moving inside of the shoe. But that loop strengthens the collar, holds your foot back, so it kind of gives you a little extra room without utilizing. That's why, you know, you go into a Fleet Feet or something like that, and they're talking about, you know, holding your foot back. That's what most of them will be able to do.
What's your best-selling shoe?
990, 1540, 847 would be up there, but
And what is that? What is it?
The 990s were.
yeah, the 990 is what I have on it. It's our neutral shoe. It comes out of more of our training and running, but this particular shoe has been in the line over 30 plus years and has very few changes to it. Neutral in its shape, strong enough on the heel to help absorb pressure, and we use polyurethane. Polyurethane doesn't bottom out, so it's supportive. But that 990 is one of our
Do
top.
they make it for women?
Sure do.
And
Cool.
Yep. Yep. And this is a shoe that has been our number one. Kind of drives the line for us. Yeah.
Why doesn't he carry it?
Get that on tape, see?
Does he know, does Julian know that that's the number one shoe?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, I think there's some pieces that we could probably revisit. Now that we're past platform, let's sit down and go through the line again.
Yeah.
Be great. You know, but I think that, you know, here again, this is stuff that, as you know, and you see people coming in and you recognize totally different New Balance that are out there. It's kind of good to know.
My
exactly
thing is
what
we
it
have so few of those athleisure shoes or
Sure.
that type of shoe. I'd love to have the best one you got.
Yeah.
And just to,
Yeah.
I think it'd add to our business.
Well,
That's not like.
you know I'm available. I've yet to turn down an invitation to come in, so usually it's let me know when.
We haven't reached our limit.
No, you won't reach my limit. I'll be over here. I'll be here tomorrow. It's about 5 till. Anything that I didn't cover that you want specifically for me to go over?
I think you did a really good
Yeah.
job.
Kind of got everything.
Waterproofing. Are your waterproof shoes, do we have one? The
We've got
3000
them.
waterproof?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, this is it's H2O resistant.
Okay, all right.
A
That's
lot of
that's my question.
Yeah, it depends, because if it doesn't have a liner to it,
Yeah.
you can seam seal a shoe and it becomes more resistant, but dissipation from the top is typically what it comes
But
down to.
your hiking boots and all those
Yes,
are
we
also
do have
water
some.
resistant?
We do have some, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Yep,
I got you.
and they do have a liner with its Gore-Tex or otherwise. Cool,
Awesome.
all right.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for
very much.
being attentive and going through it, and let me know how I can help.
Awesome.
That's really great.
Thanks a lot.